There you have it, folks. The regular season is in the books, and what a weekend we had here in college football. And let me tell you something, the committee is absolutely screwed. We're going to break into it today here on the 5 Thoughts on Week 14 in college football. But let me tell you, you can't be as screwed as this committee is. It is going to be an absolute nightmare on how they're going to get 12 teams into the college football playoffs. It is just going to be an absolute farce. More than likely, teams are going to be pissed. This may blow up the college football playoff in a way unfathomable going into the weekend. But we absolutely saw complete madness in many scenarios of what could happen here and how this is all going to shake out. And it's going to be absolutely glorious to see how they try to play this off, and we've got a lot of things to talk about, but we got Miami and Notre Dame. There is absolutely no way that Notre Dame can get in without Miami, and I'll show you why here in a little while. But the truth of the matter is they both may be left out of this college football playoff. I'm getting excited, I can't even speak, because there is real scenarios here that they have boxed themselves into, and they're going to have a hard time weaseling them out. But the bottom line at the end of the day is at least 4, probably 5 teams here are going to be absolutely pissed off the fact that they didn't get in the college football playoff and another team did, and that's likely to be 2 group of 5 teams. Yes, folks, there's a very good shot that Duke is going to win the ACC. We'll get into that and how this is all going to affect this going into this poll this weekend and then the final poll in a week from today and how this is all going to shake out. So sit back, gather around, and let's break in to week number 14 in this absolute madness season we called college football. Thought 1 on week 14 in college football. Well, we got to start up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where we had the number 1 team in the country. That's right, folks, the Ohio State University Buckeyes heading up to face the Michigan Wolverines. And Michigan thought, this is what they thought in the back of their head. All you got to do is listen to Dave Portnoy. Ryan Day is soft. This Ohio State team is finesse. They can't beat a physical football team, especially on the road in the snow. That's what they were all thinking. And at the end of the day, Ryan Day did exactly what he needed to do. He out-physicaled Michigan on the road in weather with the California quarterback they thought was going to crumble in the snowflakes, but he didn't, folks. He just kept on pushing, and that's what we love about Julian saying here in Columbus, Ohio. But the big play of the day here, I think, that's maybe getting a little overlooked, is the day that Bo Jackson had. Holy smokes, folks. He had 166 yards total offense in this game. He had 1 run that was just absolutely tremendous. The move that he made, the way that he got out of that situation that looked like a tackle potentially for loss, and he turns it into a big play. But Bo Jackson absolutely stole the day with the 166 yards total offense. That's rushing and receiving the football yesterday. Now, Michigan fans are going to sit there and cry and whine and moan and groan about the fact that Jeremiah Smith may have or may not have fumbled the football on his way into the end zone. It could have been a touchdown. It could have been a touchback. They called it a touchdown on the field. They had a hard time reversing it. The bottom line here is, folks, that's not what changed the game. What changed the game was the physicality of Ohio State over Michigan, and Michigan had no answers for it this year. You know, Ryan Day was going into this game. I mean, this was an historic game for Ryan Day. He was on the precipice of being the first coach since the 1920s to lose the second coach in history and the first coach since the 1920s to lose 5 in a row to Michigan. Even the great John Cooper couldn't do that. But here he was taking his team up, a team that a lot of people, well, they haven't played anybody. They're this, they're that, they're soft, they're weak, they're finesse, they're whatever. And he absolutely physicaled the hell out of them. Obviously, we had the touchdown we just talked about to Jeremiah Smith, but we also had the 50-yard pass in the third quarter to Carnell Tate for the touchdown, which was an absolute beauty pass there by Julian Say. And Julian Say was 19 of 26. He had 233 yards. He did have the early interception, but remember, folks, let's go back and look at the stat line of this football game. We had Michigan 163 yards of total offense in this football game, 19 minutes and 59 seconds of possession of the football. On their first drive and their second drive, which came off of Julian Say's errant throw interception there, they got 6 points and a total of 80 yards on those two drives. That was in the first 5 minutes and 15 seconds of the game. After that, Ohio State absolutely just clamped down on Michigan, giving them a total of 83 yards through three quarters in almost 10 minutes. So what is that? 50 minutes of football. They just absolutely just shut them down. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. They were 1-9 on third downs. They just had no answers for this Ohio State defense there at the Michigan offense. Watching Dave Portnoy on the live stream was just absolutely hilarious. The guy is actually melting down here, play after play after play. He realized the talk and the trash that he kept on speaking is just not going to work this year. Ryan Day was on a mission. Like I said, it was a historic mission, and he passed the test with flying colors. He definitely has by far the best football team in the country right now. There's no second guessing it. He has to play Indiana on Saturday, which we'll get into later in the week. But the bottom line here is Ryan Day's got a team that's literally prepped. The only thing going to stop Ohio State is Ohio State. And if you think any differently, you haven't been watching college football. I'm not saying Ohio State can win the national title. I'm saying they guaranteed to win a national title if they don't step on their own. You know the word I want to say. Bottom line here, Ohio State erases the demons of the last 4 years of the Michigan Wolverines, and Ryan Day gets the second win against the Wolverines in 6 tries now, and he's got them coming into Columbus next year, so he's going to get another win on that. Bottom line, at the end of the day, Ohio State just strangleholded Michigan. They had no answers for it. Sharon Moore looked absolutely puzzled and frazzled, whatever you want to call it, on the sidelines there with his manicured beard. He was looking just absolutely, this was not what he was expecting. He knew it was coming, but he didn't want to tell his team that we're about to get our ass handed to him, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. So Ohio State beats Michigan, erases the demons off of Ryan Day's back. Now he can go play for a Big Ten championship, something he hasn't won in 4 or 5 6 years maybe, and get that monkey off his back and then get into the playoffs, beat 3 teams, and make another college football final and maybe a college football national championship. Thought 2 on week 14 in college football. All right, folks, the committee has got an absolute conundrum on their hands here, and that comes down to Notre Dame and Miami, and now we have to look at the whole body of work here. Both teams are going to finish at 10-2 here on the season. Miami is not making the ACC championship game, and Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference to have a championship game. But we got 4 comparison games here between Miami and Notre Dame. We also have the win that Miami did early in week 1 over Notre Dame. So we got a head-to-head, which favors Miami. We got 4 football teams that both of these teams, common opponents that they played this year, and 2 of them happen to be just here in the month of November. But we'll start with Pittsburgh. Miami beat Pittsburgh yesterday by 31 points 2 weeks ago. Notre Dame won that game by 22 points, both on the road at Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh did take a timeout with 4 seconds left in the football game to try to score. It was a 29-point victory there for Notre Dame until that last play where they ended up cutting it down to 22. I think it was 28 points, and they ended up cutting it to 22. Bottom line here is that we have a comparison opponent played 2 weeks apart from each other, and Miami beat Pittsburgh by more than Notre Dame did in basically the same type of game. So you can't say Notre Dame is better than Miami in that region there. They both played North Carolina State this year. Miami beat NC State, the Wolfpack, by 34. Notre Dame beat them by 29. Comparable opponent, and they both won big. Miami won a little bigger. We had Syracuse that Notre Dame beat by 63 points, and Miami only beat them by 28. The problem here is that Notre Dame beat them with literally a walk-on quarterback who plays on the lacrosse team, not even really a serious football player here at Syracuse, but they had to put him in. So we're going to give that a wash. They both beat Syracuse pretty handily. Miami actually beat them, though, when they had an actual scholarship quarterback. Clearly Notre Dame didn't in that game. And then we had Stanford. Both teams played Stanford. We had Miami beat Stanford by 35 points. And last night, we had Notre Dame. They knew they needed to beat down this Stanford team by a lot of points to keep their playoff hopes alive, especially considering what they saw happen all day going into that game. That was a 10:30 game, and they ended up beating Stanford by 29 points. So when you look at the two comparisons of the four teams that they played, Notre Dame only outscored Miami against those opponents in one game, and that was Syracuse. We just told you why that was the case in the way that it ended up being a 63-point game. So there is no way on earth that you can keep Miami out of the college football playoff with the win against Notre Dame and put Notre Dame in with the loss to Miami when the schedule has four comparative teams on it that you can look and say, hey, one team's not better than the other, and one team beat it on the field. So Miami has to get the benefit of the doubt here. Notre Dame's got to be out. I think this could be a real situation where both teams are out because of this at the end of the day. So bottom line here is the committee's got an absolute mess on their hands here with this particular battle between Miami and Notre Dame, and it is going to really shake out in a way that's not going to be favorable for one, maybe both. Or they're going to get both of them in, and that's going to kick out a potential SEC, which could kick out the SEC loser in the SEC championship game if that is Alabama. So the committee's absolutely screwed here. It's absolutely wonderful to watch. We'll see how they're going to do it, but it is an absolute nightmare there. So we had, again, Notre Dame beat Stanford yesterday. We had Miami just dismantle Pitt on the road in a game a lot of people thought Miami was potentially going to lose. So who's it going to come down to? I'm going to go with they're both getting in, and an SEC team is going to get left out here in the way that the SEC looked. We'll get to that here in just a second. Thought 3 on Week 14 in college football. What a weekend we had in the SEC here in week number 14, and this really has shaken up. Folks, I don't know what the SEC is going to do here after this all shakes out, but I got a feeling they're not going to be happy about it because at the end of the day here, when you start looking around at what is left and how this is all going to shuffle out and break down, the SEC thought they were going to get 5 teams in. They were even talking 6 teams at one point just a couple weeks ago. I heard Paul Feinbaum talking about it. But the truth of the matter here is they're only going to get 4 teams in to this college football playoff, and someone's going to get left out and not going to be happy about it. So what did we see this weekend? It started off on Friday. We saw Georgia beat Georgia Tech in a really uninspired game by Georgia. 16-9. This is a team that ACC teams were throwing up a ton of points on, considering that Boston College threw up 40-some points on this team. Pittsburgh threw up 35-some points against this Georgia Tech football team, and Georgia just didn't look very good at all on Friday. They're kind of banged up. They got some offensive positions on the offensive line that they got some problems with, and Kirby just wanted to get out of that game, go home, sit on his couch next weekend. get through the SEC championship game without having to play in it, take his 1-loss, 11-1 record into the college football playoffs, get rested, probably either get a bye potentially or at least play a home game in the first round. But all of a sudden now he has to play Alabama this weekend coming up. And Alabama didn't look great yesterday against Auburn. But remember, you got to win ugly to beat Auburn, and that's kind of what Alabama did. They jumped up 17-0. They let Auburn claw all the way back into this game and tie it up at 20 in the fourth quarter. What the hell was Alabama doing? Giving up 20 straight points. Well, it wasn't 20 straight points, but it was 20 points almost in a row there against Alabama to have Auburn tie this game. And then they end up winning this game, and Auburn just kind of melted down after they tied it up, made too many mistakes to win the football game. Alabama wins 27-20. But here's the real problem that the committee has in the SEC right now, and that is someone's getting left out, and the question's going to be who, and it could be two. Who, and it could be two, is the word of the day here. So we've got Texas A&M here at 11-1. We've got Ole Miss at 11-1. You got to think both of those teams are comfortably in the college football playoff. Could they leave Ole Miss out because Lane Kiffin leaves and goes to LSU? I doubt it. There is a slim possibility of that. They could say that they don't have their coach. They won't be the same football team that they've been all year. But let's just say for right now in this breakdown, we're going to put Texas A&M and Ole Miss in the college football playoff as it sits right now. That leaves us the Alabama versus Georgia game. If Alabama loses that game, that's going to put Alabama at 3 losses. If Georgia loses that game, it's going to put Georgia at 2 losses, with their 2 losses both coming to Alabama. You got to think that if Georgia wins that game, they're definitely in. If Alabama wins that game, they're definitely in. But what happens to the other one in this scenario? Could Georgia get left out? I don't think so. But let's just say for what we know in history is that Kirby Smart can't beat Alabama. So if Alabama wins that game, that puts us at Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama in the playoffs, and then you got to think Georgia's getting back in with the loss in the SEC championship game. That leaves us Oklahoma at 10-2. That leaves us Vanderbilt at 10-2, and that leaves us Texas at 9-3. All 3 of those teams are probably going to get left out of the college football playoff, and I'll tell you why here in the wrap-up, just coming up here in a little bit, because there's just not enough spots for the amount of teams, and you can't go into this thing saying that the SEC championship game is not going to affect the loser, and they could be in or they could be out. And they're going to be in if they lose the SEC championship game because it can't be punished for that, and not do the same for Texas Tech or BYU in this scenario. So it's really going to be challenging when they get down to the end of this thing. 2 or 3 of these teams are going to be left out. Texas is out for sure. There's no way they can get in the way it sits here. Alabama loses. They're going to be out because they're not going to be able to put Alabama in and keep Oklahoma out in this scenario. And they're not going to get more than 4 in the way they've set this thing up unless they somehow leave out both Miami and Notre Dame, which we just talked about. So really is going to shake this thing up here in the next, how is it going to break out? We're going to find out this week on Tuesday when they bring out these rankings. But the problem is their rankings are going to have to be adjusted after the CFP or the championship games next week. And it's just going to be really, really challenging for them to get enough SEC teams in to make the SEC feel worthy and not try to get out of this whole college football playoff thing without adding more teams just to benefit the SEC. So the bottom line here at the end of the day is we know Texas A&M and Ole Miss is in. We know the winner of the Alabama-Georgia game is in. At that point, the loser of that game has to get mixed in with Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, and the loser of the SEC championship game, and only one of those three teams is going to get in. I think if it's Georgia loses, they're in. Oklahoma doesn't look like a playoff team, especially yesterday against LSU. Vanderbilt does look like a playoff team in the way that they kind of dismantled Tennessee yesterday. And Texas is out there arguing, why did we go play Ohio State? Because if we were a two-loss team, we'd be definitely in. No, you wouldn't, Texas. No, you wouldn't. Based off of this scenario, because three teams are going to get left out for sure. So you could very easily be one of those three teams. So there we go. We got absolute chaos here, and it's absolutely wonderful. They're just going to have to blow up this whole playoff and redo it here in a couple weeks. And how are they going to do it? And this is all going to be glorious to watch how this all comes about. So there we go in the SEC. Absolute mayhem and chaos going into this weekend. And I'm telling you, there's four teams getting into this thing the way it looks right now, and there's three teams that are going to be sitting on the outside looking in that are just going to be not very happy about it, and more than likely that's going to be Vanderbilt for sure, Texas for sure, and then it's going to come down to Oklahoma or Alabama. Again, if Alabama loses in the SEC championship game, they can't put them ahead of Oklahoma. Oklahoma just beat them. And if Georgia loses, then it really comes down to who really should be in. Is it Oklahoma? Is it Vandy? Is it Georgia? It can't be Texas in any scenario here. Texas A&M, Ole Miss are definitely in, and that's all we know for sure in week number 14 of the SEC. Thought 4 on week 14 in college football. I told you there's absolute chaos coming to the ACC, and here we are. It's right here in front of us, and it's exactly what I said could happen 4 weeks ago, and I was told I was absolutely crazy, and that would be Duke winning the ACC championship game and keeping the ACC champion out of the college football playoff, putting two group of five teams in. We'll get to that in just a second, but we've got an absolute nightmare scenario here for the ACC and the College Football Committee. The easy thing to do would be for Virginia to beat Duke here. Duke just lost to Virginia 3 weeks ago. It's very challenging to beat a team twice in one season, so we'll see if Virginia can again beat Duke this week. Virginia beat Virginia Tech yesterday. Virginia Tech's not a good football team. They beat them like 27-7, so they beat them by 20 points, but it wasn't a super great performance by Virginia in that game. It was a rivalry game. We know how these games can go, but at the end of the day here, Duke is 7-5, folks. If Duke gets into the college football playoff with 7-5 record, it would be an 8-5 in an ACC championship game. It can't happen. It's absolutely impossible. They can't be ranked high enough to beat out two group of five teams, which we'll get into in the next segment here. So the bottom line here is that the ACC chaos that I've been predicting is coming true. Duke wins this football game. The question then is, now you look at that and you can keep the ACC champion out. You got to put the two group of fives in. Then can you put Miami in as an ACC at large with Notre Dame? Because I'm telling you, you can't keep, we've already talked about it, you can't keep Notre Dame in and Miami out based off of this. It'd be absolutely bullshit if you did. So the bottom line here, at the end of the day, the chaos has ensued. The ACC is going to throw a monkey wrench in all of this. How is this going to break down? But there's no way the committee could rank Duke in the top 25 or even above a James Madison in North Texas or a Tulane, because they have 5 football games that they have lost already this season. 5. And those games have been very, very one-sided in many of the instances, like the Illinois loss that they had. That was a one-sided game for Illinois. Duke did not look good. So at the end of the day here, the chaos is building all across college football, and it's just absolutely glorious to see how this is going to shake out. But I'm telling you, Duke is on a collision course to win the ACC, finish up at 8-5, and be out of the college football playoff, which is just, again, going to cause more and more controversy here as we get into the final week next Sunday when we try to build out a 12-team bracket and a 17-team field. Thought 5 on week 14 in college football. All right, folks, here we are now to the group of 5, and what kind of madness are we going to see here? We just talked about how if Duke wins the ACC championship game next week, it's got to be 2 group of 5 teams in the college football playoff. We got North Texas taking on Tulane next week. Going to be an absolute great football game in the American Conference Championship. We got James Madison, who won yesterday, and they're going to play Troy in the, the Sun Belt Conference Championship. So we're going to have 2 group of 5 teams. The winner of the Tulane versus North Texas game, in my opinion, is definitely in the college football playoff over James Madison. Either one of those teams wins, they're in above them. North Texas would be 12-1 at that point. James Madison would be 12-1 at that point, and then Tulane would be 11-2 at that point. If they won the American Conference, Tulane's already ranked above James Madison. No one knows where North Texas and James Madison is, but if James Madison beats Troy and North Texas beats Tulane, North Texas is definitely going to be the higher ranked team between those two. So now the scenario is, does James Madison get in with a win by Duke in the ACC championship game? And the answer is absolutely yes. There's no way they can put a 5-loss team in, even over a group of 5 team with 1 loss. It's not going to happen. So if you're a group of 5er, you really, really, really want Duke to win that game against Virginia. Virginia is an okay football team here, and Duke can beat them, even though they lost to Virginia just a couple weeks ago by 17. So if you're a group of 5er, you need to be rooting for Duke, just like Duke was rooting for Cal last night. What a performance there by Cal to take down SMU and to make this thing just absolutely fall in the favor of a group of 5 extra team being in the playoff, which is then going to just absolutely blow the minds of a conference like the SEC, where they're going to have potentially 2 2-loss teams maybe sitting on the outside looking in, and a group of 5 gets 2 teams in because of the automatic qualifiers. And the ACC could be without any teams in the college football playoff, depending on how this shakes out. So the end of the day here, it's just absolutely, again, like we talked about over and over and over in this video, it's absolutely glorious to see the situation that's going to occur here with the playoff committee and how the hell they're going to figure this out. And it's just going to be an absolute train wreck, and everyone's going to be pissed off. I can promise you that. Well, that brings us to the end of our 5 thoughts on Week 14 in college football. And again, folks, we just had absolute chaos and madness, just building into this final week of the conference championship games. And this thing, again, is just going to blow up in the committee's face. There is going to definitely need to be some changes on how this playoff works. That's coming in the meeting that's like just before the national championship game. I think the week before the national championship game, these guys are getting together. Are we going to 14 teams? Are we going to 16 teams? Hell, are we going to 24 teams? What are we going to do with this? But I'm telling you, this season and 2 years into the college football playoff, it worked out last year mostly. But at the end of the day here, this thing is going to be a mess, and it's going to come down to teams like, is the conference championship loss going to be affecting teams' ability to get into the college football playoff? And that would be like in Alabama. If they lose to Georgia, they're out. There's no way they can put them in over top of an Oklahoma, maybe a Vanderbilt, but we've already talked about it. They're not going to get 5 teams in if they use that same criteria. We have BYU playing Texas Tech. Texas Tech has 1 loss. BYU has 1 loss. That loss is a pretty bad loss against Texas Tech on the road. Can BYU come back this week and play a much closer game, beat Texas Tech, or fall just short of them? How are they going to keep BYU out but then still put an Alabama in? Ohio State and Indiana, both those teams are going to get in, win or lose that game. There's no question about that. Oregon's definitely going to be in the playoff with their win yesterday on the road at Washington, which is not an easy place to play. So if you know anything about college football, a win at Washington's a good win at any time. So it's really going to boil down to Who are they going to leave out, and how is this all going to be affected? And it's going to be just absolutely miserable for multiple teams here. Utah is another team. I don't think Utah has any chance of getting into the college football playoff now, even at 10-2. I really don't think Vanderbilt has a chance. I know that Texas doesn't have a chance of the way it sits right now. Oklahoma very well could not have a chance, depending on what happens in the SEC championship game if they only get 4 teams in. Again, if Alabama beats Georgia, I'm still putting Georgia in above Oklahoma, even though neither team has looked super great offensively. Oklahoma's defense is probably better than Georgia's. I don't know that Georgia could beat Oklahoma on the field, but I'm just telling you they're going to put them in. Vanderbilt's going to get left out. Diego had a great game yesterday. Could he be in the Heisman front runner all of a sudden in the season where there's only really, to me, it's Jeremiah Love, it's Julian Sayin, it's Fernando Mendoza, and I guess it's Diego Pavia is the 4 guys there to get to. It's definitely not Ty Simpson, what we've seen recently, and it's definitely not Gunnar Stockton with what we saw on Friday in that game against Georgia Tech. So at the end of the day here, we have an absolute nightmare scenario for the college football committee, and I've said it over and over again in this video. It's absolutely glorious. So let's hang tight, see what happens on Tuesday night. We'll make a little video to recap that probably on Wednesday for you, and then we'll see where we are going into the championship weekend. But we got real chaos brewing here, and it's absolutely wonderful. So there you go. Remember, gather around in ALTT. We'll see you soon.